You might hear like a whoomp, 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 like it's like I say it's like a very low bass sound with a very high, sometimes Tibetan singing bowl noise. That can be the craft in apparition form overlapping our reality land on you. And if you're sensitive enough, it might feel like you're having a dream, even though you're lucid dreaming, and you're in bed and you can see them in your mind's eye. They could vibrate you on board the craft that way to where you're now on the craft. You haven't gone anywhere. You're just overlapping your reality.
Just your consciousness transferred to the UFO?
Yeah, or they can pull the consciousness out and put it into an avatar body to where all of a sudden you're in another body.
Stop! Welcome back to another episode of Awakened Minds podcast. Today's guest is Peter Maxwell Slattery. He is very well known for his documentary Multidimensional. He is a #1 best-selling author of 12, soon to be 13 books. He is an ET contactee, spirit teacher, and educator on self-mastery and consciousness, which we are going to unpack in this episode. He also has his Jaya Sanctuary, I hope I said that right, where he conducts CE5 contact and empowers you to be able to learn how to connect to your extraterrestrial beings that are among us. So guys, stay tuned for this episode. It is going to bring you a wealth of knowledge. So I urge you to have an open mind and an open heart in order to digest this incredible wisdom today. So without further ado, I welcome you, Peter Maxwell Slattery.
So I'm coming to you guys from Jaya Sanctuary, which is a sanctuary I've made here in Victoria, so people can congregate, meet, be educated on all this stuff. And my experiences started from a very young age. Now, with that said, you can watch one of my movies for free now, which is Multidimensional, that's online. But there's also a part 2, we could say, that goes on from that called Ascension, the UFO and Paranormal Connection, which is on Amazon and iTunes and other formats. But that can show you a lot of the evidence in terms of the physicality. But I didn't understand what was going on as a child. There's a few experiences with a being that I know who it is now. Yeah, I don't want to go too far. It's because the thing with this is that you don't realize a lot until later in life, and then you sort of go back and you're connecting the dots. So there's sort of going forward in time traveling back, going forward again, and then time traveling back.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of that. So to keep it brief, there was telepathic communication from a young age from a female intelligence that I didn't understand who or what it was. I was getting sort of predictions, stuff ahead of time. Even my mum took me to the doctor to try and understand it. But like you said, even in later years, as long as it's nothing negative, it's not too much to worry about. And it was funny in later years because I had another doctor when I was in Melbourne for a few years, and he was intrigued and said, "Can you write down on a piece of paper one of your experiences?" And I said, "Well, how about I give you a few books?" And he was quite taken aback because it's something that I don't think, even doctors in the medical field, though there's a lot of nurses that I've helped and doctors, but just mainstream, they don't understand how prevalent this type of stuff is, meaning just the paranormal, supernatural, which is really normal.
How old
So,
were you when you did offer these books at that point in your life?
well, that's only going back now, probably 2016. So
Okay.
I'm finishing the 13th book now, but we're talking the first with the family doctor, we're talking around 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, multiple visits, because around 8 to 12 years old, I was getting visited by beings that they look like your typical greys, but they're white. And in years later, I found out they're actually light beings, and I call them the guardians. And they're not your physical type of beings at all. It was a way that they were projecting it and appearing in a form that wouldn't freak me out, though it freaked the absolute crap out of me because I had no reference. Even, seeing movies at that time and cartoons, I didn't even think these things were aliens. I didn't know what they were. And the story I don't talk about much, but one of them, the original being that appeared as Kurt Cobain, the singer of Nirvana.
Nice.
So it was, well, that freaked me out. That really freaked me out. And then there was sort of a distortion. Now, at that time, even looking back to dates, I don't even think Kurt Cobain was dead at that time.
I was just going to ask you that question. Yeah.
So this is where there is a thing where I've talked to many other experiences where the dead will start appearing around some of these types of experiences, but this was something tailored specifically to me because I've always been a big Nirvana fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happened like regularly. I can't give you like every night. It wasn't every night, though. Sometimes it could have been clumped into multiple nights in a row. Family members have now were one of them was experiencing things at that time, and everyone's experienced something now. But 12 years old was when I had my first UFO sighting, and I didn't even talk about that probably for 4 or 5 years after it happened either. So it was sort of from that point that there was a wave of paranormal experiences, whether it was ghosts or seeing objects picked up and thrown or shadow people. And every now and then I'd have a crazy UFO sighting. And from then on, pretty much I had witnesses with me during the sightings.
Awesome.
And 2010 was when it really picked up, and it hasn't stopped since 2010.
Incredible. Wow. Can I ask you, do you think that there was some experience that happened to you that opened you up this way? Because it seems that you're incredibly psychic in nature, very intuitive, very open and aware. So did anything happen to you, like a near-death experience? Because Jimmy and I have interviewed many near-death experiences who have come to be able to see things that they couldn't see before. So did something spark this in you, or were you just born this way?
Well, there was a type of sexual abuse incident that I don't normally talk about, but there's still stuff that was happening before that. And I asked a whole lot of questions when I'm interfacing with people. So I do find a common age area of 12 years old, give or take, that people start to have experiences, or their life's crap, they're not happy with it, and it's like their soul is diverting them to an experience that they die, they go to the other side, they realize that they're not dead, that you don't die, and they come back. So it's one of those things that I think it's not black and white, and it's a bit of a joke. The shade of grey in the middle is beyond 50. It's just can't pigeonhole this whole phenomena, whether you want to see it as that, even though I know some of the beings I'm interfacing with, I've been taken to other worlds and realms, there's still mysteries to them as well. So nobody's got the whole thing, but I think that's a smart question. Like, I try to nitpick so much, and family and friends and researchers get frustrated with me because there's still a lot that I'm sitting on, because I have to nitpick things for my own sanity with this, I think, because we want truth. And even interfacing, whether it's angelic intelligences or extraterrestrial intelligences or spirit team and guides and that, there's an aspect where they won't lie, but they won't give you the full piece. And when I've pushed for information and they've given me the full piece of something, I've realized that 3 days later, 3 weeks later, 3 years later, I finally get it. At the time, I thought they were lying because I'm not at that level of consciousness to integrate in the human aspect what it was that they were trying to relay. Because I think, as a tip to everyone, if you can be childlike with this and get out of linear thinking, which is really hard because this is a linear experience, you'll start to understand more of this. But I do believe that out of body, we understand it all.
How would you describe time if you say, like, get out of linear time? I've heard you say that before in interviews. How would you describe time as being?
By being in the present moment, and then observing that you're observing the present moment, and that there's another place behind that you're perceiving that you're observing through the moment. Now, it sounds convoluted, but it's through much meditation and much isolation that I've come to that conclusion, because, like the Elohim, one of the intelligences, which I believe all our highest expression is an Elohim being, then there's the creator being faction, they come in different colors in the rainbow body. It's something that was relayed once that everything has an electromagnetic component, and past, present, and future all happening at the same time. It depends where your focus is, to where on that river of we could say a river within the toroidal field of everything happening, that's what you're going to experience, where that pinpoint of awareness is focused.
Yeah,
I hope
yeah.
that's making sense. And I'll say that a
100%.
lot, that I
Yeah.
hope this is making sense, because it's, as you're aware from your own stuff, that it's hard to get, again, stuff that's multidimensional and try to linearize it for being able to be perceived and understood.
I actually love the way that
Right.
you describe it, the waterfall within the toroidal field that becomes your perspective of your reality that's then manifested, because that's what your point of focus is on. So it's like whatever you focus your attention on creates your reality, quite literally. So let's dive into something a little different, and it's kind of connected, but it's about the mind and in the spiritual world, attachments, entities. You've done some clearings and things like that, and I loved that you brought up in another interview how you could do as many clearings as possible, but unless you get this right, it can keep happening. So let's dive into that and your knowledge surrounding attachments, entities, and how to protect yourself and things like that.
Yeah, so it's really from personal experience, because from house calls, getting called to asylums, or going to investigate asylums and jails and all sorts of things, and actually
Damn.
seeing at times these entities attached to people, all working through people. And in a lot of cases, we could say that these entities are living through them. It could even be past spirits that had drug and alcohol issues when they passed over, and then they attach to somebody, and all of a sudden they've got a chink in their armor, so to speak, and they get back into drinking alcohol, then become an alcoholic or what have you. So it was really weird that not until years later did I realize, through my own contacts, and really I say that spirit guides, ETs, angels, they're all middlemen between us and the divine, and we want to be connecting to our own higher self. It doesn't make us more important or little compared to them, but when you experience things in a way that I have, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers and yourselves have experienced this unbounded consciousness, you realize we're all cells of the same body and we're all one. So from that point, it was really something that I realized I'd done boot camp before it got hardcore, going into places. And now today I've talked to a lot of people from a lot of different religious establishments, even people from the Vatican to people in governments, because they don't even have all the answers, even with exorcisms or certain things. And it doesn't mean I do either. But I've had the trial and error and used so many different techniques, even provoking at times, to try and deal with situations for people that were in harmful situations. And I've had scratches on my body, picked up by the throat, choked. Physical, people say you can't be affected physical. Well, that's their experience. But that's not my experience, because it depends on your frequency and where your perception and where you're focusing. That now brings on, your reality. So
Let me ask you real quick. When you mentioned that you were grabbed and scratched and you have physical evidence of this happening, and you mentioned your frequency, could you give us a tip on what frequency that might be? Because you just reminded me of a friend of mine who, she was messaging me. She's like, oh, I've just been thrown off the bed. I have scratches on my back, and we're practicing in the spiritual community, learning, deep diving, going down the rabbit hole and whatnot. So could you give us an idea, if you were aware, the types of frequencies to be aware of that?
yeah, look, I don't have all the answers, but I'll give you sort of my guesstimation on this, and even from some of the intel that I do have. So you've got different levels of these, we could say, I even call some of these dark masters. They're void of light. They're the fallen Elohim, the opposite within source, that actually I don't see good and bad anymore, that I'm going to use those terms. It doesn't mean I condone the negative things that they do. But we go through soul evolution when we go through trials and tribulations. It's like you don't know your full potential. And again, it doesn't make those things okay. But there are some entities that if you're on drugs and alcohol, lower frequencies, you're going to match that. And these things can just slip straight on in as an attachment and work through you. There is things where even you having a bad day and you might not drink anything, but you could be having a bad day, or you could have some trouble, you know, with friends or family, or something going on that's emotional that puts you into a lower vibratorial state. There's a chink in your armor. Some things can see this, and you could even be driving through a neighborhood where there was a car accident, somebody died, and there's residual energy, or somebody on drugs and alcohol at the supermarket. I believe every day we come past these types of things, and that's why clearings are very important regularly, but that's why self-mastery is even more important. The other aspect with this too is that as you start to shine in your own journey, doesn't mean you've got to be public, and I'll talk about that in a moment. These beings, and you may have experienced this in some of your own experiences, but they see us as light, the positive and the negative. And the negative want to derive that light because they're void of it, and it's a source that they transmute as a source of energy for them. So you've got an aspect that the more that you're walking your path, it can get easier, but the attacks can get more. Just like James Gilliland, my friend and mentor, says, the more you get closer to nirvana, the more the demons are going to rear their ugly head. So people, a lot of the time, they're thinking, oh, I'm 5D, I'm not going to get touched, this and that. Great. But there's a lot of times I get a call up and go, I've just had my first attack, this, that, the other. And it's not saying so, but I've been very strong on preventative measures. Just like with CE5, you don't want to open to anything and everything, because even with the investigations I've done to help people, years ago, I was even working out for myself, I don't like the term psychic, but intuitive. I was intuitive and didn't realize I was intuitive, which is not why I'm just experiencing one thing. I'm experiencing the whole phenomena, which is nearly everything. And so you've got a situation here that as you're developing, that can be a gate opening for the real dark masters and the real dark entities to come through. And there's also government remote influencing and groups, dark witchcraft groups and things like that, and spirit cooking in Hollywood. These people that as soon as they see you getting on the mark, meaning you're getting out there publicly, these types of groups get together and try to screw with you as well. So even I've used this, funny that we've talked about this, because the last couple of days it was brought up as just an example. Years ago when Britney Spears shaved her head and she was losing her crap, that's a prime example of millions of people projecting a psychic attack, not intentionally, but having negative thoughts about somebody, and all of a sudden it produces a breakdown for somebody. So attacks come in multiple ways, but I see it more like spiritual hygiene, that you've got to check yourself regularly. Your thoughts, are these my thoughts? If not, you know, where are they coming from? It could be past, you know, traumas, judgments, things that you need to heal. But that's why right now, from the sanctuary, even though I'm doing a lot of, I'm trying to make this one of the most documented places of not just, we could say contact, but also what human capability is through the abilities we've got, and also documenting this. So self-mastery to me is, if you've got self-mastery, everything from the paranormal, spirit guides, ETs, and your abilities, that's just a natural byproduct that comes with self-mastery, if that's the path that people want to go down. So it is laid the different types of entities that can come in.
Hey, could I ask you, I have a friend of mine who also has a farm that we do drum circles out at. And like we haven't intended on doing a CE5 type of contact, but they do show up. Like these little blue UFOs start showing up around us all the time. And like I've had them come over my house and stop and then shoot right off into space. But it seems like when we get together, half of us will be on one side because we'll make a big fire, and we'll all notice exactly what it is. And we'll know that that's, you know, a UFO. But then the people on the other side of the fire will not see it. They'll see anything but a UFO. Like to them, it's a big joke and they're laughing at us. So I was just wondering, like, what do you do extra for a CE5 besides what I just told you, like a drum circle and all?
Like the funny thing is, where I get the most crazy stuff here, even recently, where I'll just be sitting outside and just talking about this can bring it on. An example, I've spoken to well-known researchers, and some of them have got out of the field completely because their life just went havoc from this. They talk to me, and the next day they have an experience. I don't believe it's because they talk to me. I believe it's because they probably spoke about it.
Yeah.
Right. So the intention is number one with this, and this is where it's different when you're initiating it. As an example, in the workshops and the half-day events that I do, what I'm doing now is we will go into a clearing as soon as, well, really we'll get to know each other first meeting, just share your name, where have you come from. Next we'll go into, all right, I'm going to do a clearing, but I'll also go into the history of the land that I'm on, what's going on here, because it's got a lot of gold and quartz in it. It's in an area that's known as Parting of the Skies. So there's history here, but then I'll go into doing a clearing. Then we'll go into a circle that I've got here that I've infused it with different Star Nation energies and galactic and angelic energies that people can walk in and just get acquainted with energy, because they think it's just lights in the sky, but the beings can be on the ground with us, even if it's momentarily, or you can feel the energy, or the craft land on you, as I've talked about in apparition form that you might be aware of, that I've spoken of that. So when I go through that, I then go into Yigong, which is an ancient practice that Tai Chi and Qigong come from. And then I'll go through another observation exercise, which is a initiating contact meditation. Sometimes I'll go into a connecting with your guides meditation. But events are already unfolding as soon as people come. So it's slightly different each time. And I find that the best results after even doing all that is when you least expect it and we're having fun and we're joking and talking crap. It happens. It just happens straight. You'll see in one of the videos, I didn't get it, but the sun's not even down and you can just hear me go, there they are. And it's as soon as everyone went to the circle, we had a craft coming down low above us.
I think I saw that. Was that the video where you were all just hanging out and next minute you're like, oh, look, and they're like, everyone's like, oh, did you see that? Right? I just watched that.
So it's just, and it happened the other day. I had a friend visiting and we're just sitting outside and I said, I just got a feeling we've got to go on the deck. And we went on the deck, which is another one to an old house that was here that I've turned into a stage. And straight away we had 2 structured craft come down after a huge orb.
Awesome.
But with family, they've seen it. I can be sitting down having lunch and I go, they're here, and we walk out and I put my head out from the veranda and broad daylight, there's a saucer just sitting there. So it's something that it's different when you've got a group as well. And why I go through that is because everyone's on a different level when they come to me. So I've got something like, you could say, I'm not going to put percentages, but let's say a third of the group are experiencers. Another third of the group have had a paranormal experience, and another third, they're completely new to this and maybe even skeptical. So I've got to, like I say, you've got to be childlike. Don't believe me, but just for now, while you're here and you want to experience it, throw everything you think you know out the window, have fun, and use your imagination, which is creation, with some of the stuff that I'll be taking you through. And so many times, even people that are aerospace engineers and things like that have come here, they've experienced stuff and they're mind boggled when they leave because they just don't know what they saw with the preconceived notion that this was a load of crap. So yeah, there's not one I've done that something hasn't happened, but a lot of the time, if there's not such good energy there, as soon as that person leaves, and let's say a third of the group are left, have left or stay, depending on the circumstance, everyone has an experience. So there is quite a lot that it does affect this, because it's really the intention and motivation. It's not just about filming. I've even had to just train myself through reactionary mind in a positive way to be able to film. And most people don't know that I'm interfacing with them sometimes when I'm filming the craft. Like through my third eye, I can see on board the craft and I'm communicating, which I train into that. Yeah. Yeah. I got vertigo a lot when that started. Major vertigo.
I love that you said that. Oh, keep going. Sorry.
I'll just go quickly, because what can happen is also the mind's eye can turn into like 2 screens to where you're seeing them, and then I'll just say this because sometimes when I'm physically interacting with them, and I'll go into non-physically as well, I could be looking at them, and in my mind while I'm looking at them, my mind's eye is as clear as my physical eyes looking at them. I'm getting bombarded with information, thoughts, and feelings all in sync with that information. Now, if I'm filming the craft or on the ground, having an experience looking at the craft, I could even be bilocated on the craft and physically still on the ground on it, or we can merge our consciousness. I will see them in my mind, and I'll also have a second compartment come up in my third eye. So 2 screens basically is a way I can describe it. And it will be the information they're projecting with thoughts, feelings, and visions.
Damn.
So, and that can happen while
Like-
you're in bed. A lot of people
Like
hear
their messages and symbolisms come to you on another screen.
Yeah, well, it can. Yeah. Yeah. It just depends on the intelligence, because some of them may not give no third eye information. It may be just completely energetic. Others I might see
Yeah.
light codes and information and geometry and all sorts of stuff. And even the beings can be geometry themselves, to the point where they could even be just a complete non-physical entity, and they're projecting the flying saucer, and you could even walk on it, and it's not real. It's all actually, a projection from consciousness. But
Oh.
yeah, it does overlap into the experience too of, you can be in your bed.
None of this
might
is
feel like
real.
You might hear like a whoomp, 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 it's like, I say it's like a very low bass sound with a very high, sometimes Tibetan singing bowl noise. That can be the craft in apparition form, overlapping our reality, land on you. And if you're sensitive enough, it might feel like you're having a dream, even though you're lucid dreaming, and you're in bed and you can see them in your mind's eye. They could vibrate you on board the craft that way, to where you're now on the craft. You haven't gone anywhere. You're just overlapping your reality.
Is your
And
consciousness transferred?
What's that?
Just your consciousness transferred to that UFO?
Yeah. Yeah. Or they can pull the consciousness out and put it into an avatar body, to where all of a sudden you're in another body.
Stop, like a clone.
Well, yeah, but see, this is where it gets so laid that we could even go into just a light body format on there as well, because like even a lot of the stuff I'm experiencing, it's not even ET. It's, we could say, angelic, highly evolved celestial intelligences that they're in their Merkaba or their rainbow body, which is the ultimate thing with this, before you merge back and dissolve into source. But you still identify as yourself as an aspect of source, but you're also source at the same time. It's like a drop of the ocean. You're the ocean, but you're also that one drop within it. So this is where it all connects, because the same way I talked about interfacing with the intelligences through visions, thoughts, feelings, sensation, because the sensation, what you'll notice, and I don't talk about this much, if you've had sleep paralysis or worked with a skenar device, like an electrical device that they use for healing, right? And it might be like a TENS machine. I don't believe I've ever used one. But let's say with sleep paralysis, just before the paralysis kicks in, this huge voltage of energy, almost paralyzing before you are paralyzed. What I don't talk about much in a telltale sign with not just these entities, but also experiences and also angelic celestial intelligences, is you will feel different energies very intensely. With the more advanced, you can't stop crying. You're not sobbing, just tears can't stop coming out of your eyes.
Yeah.
So what's happening is it's their light body overlapping your light body, even though you may not be able to perceive it with the denser form of their light body in a Merkaba or a physical form. But it's all connected, because the same way, like I said, with thoughts, feelings, visions, and sensation, you get with an angel, you'll get with an ET, you'll get with Bigfoot, you'll get with the fairy, you'll get with another past human entity that's in between realms or worlds, you could say, that may have not crossed over. You'll get with basically all forms of intelligences, which when I worked it out, and I teach the connecting to spirit and ET guides meditation, which is free as well. I teach it. It's on YouTube, so anyone can use it. If you can master that in your own way, you can interface with anything. But this is where clearing an intention is important behind that, because all of them interface the same way. Even the darkest of entities interface that same way. But it is a process of, first and foremost, you finding your tool in your spirit toolbox. Meaning, women, majority of the time, they got women's intuition. I say, great, that's your psychic sense. Use that. As an example, I just use this as an example. Let's say you break up with your man in a female situation. You haven't seen him for 7 months, and one day you just know that he's with somebody else now. Women just know.
Yeah, I
No
know.
phone call, no
Yeah, they
contact.
do.
You know.
Every single partner I've ever been with, I know when those motherfuckers are cheating on me. Like, I just
Yeah.
know. I don't need no evidence. I know, and I'm always right. And yeah, you're right.
So that's your ballpark. Where men a lot of the time have got a visual component. Now we know this from psychic studies, but I'm not trying to be sexist or put anyone in a
Yeah.
box, because I can operate on all senses, and I've met females that are amazing operating on all senses. But my point with this is people want to get from A to Z. You work with what you're great at already, and then as you're observing through the communication, whether it's sensing energy, thoughts, feelings, ideas, epiphanies, and delineating between your thoughts and something else's, work just with what you're good at. The other things will come online, but it does take dedication and practice. And
Mhm.
it's just one of those things. So I'll stop rambling on there, but it's just all connected.
No, you
I had to
keep rambling.
connect.
I
That
told
was
Jimmy
beautiful.
coming into this, I'm like, we are about to go to school. We're going to learn some shit today. You are incredible. Your knowledge is amazing. So we're all for it. You know, say what you got to say, because we're here to listen, and share as well, because you're just a wealth of knowledge. I absolutely love it. Um, so I want to dive into something a little different. I don't know if you've been involved in it or not, but we've recently been doing interviews with Tony Rodriguez, Daryl James, Journey to Truth podcast revolving the secret space program. So your reptilians, your Dracos, your Illuminati, your Luciferian, etc., etc. Have you been involved in any of that at all, or are aware of that? Or also, what is your stance on the disclosure movement? What's your perspective about, you know, sharing all of the darker versions of what's going on with ET races? Should we be focusing on that? Is it important to share that? Because I'm on the fence. I'm like, okay, I've learned about the secret space program, the hybridization, you know, all the things that are going on, like the stuck in a soul trap, you know, things like that. But do we continue diving into that and sharing that, or should we, you know what I mean?
Balance. It's all balance. I've
Yeah.
seen lives destroyed from this.
Yeah.
Literally.
Mhm.
I know, like, people have passed from the destruction that this can cause. It's serious. Look, to be enlightened, you've got to be aware of all knowledge.
Mm.
So people that have got their head in the water about, you know, let's say the space programs, this, that, reptilians. I've written going back now over a decade about reptilians and some experiences that I just brought out Ascending, UFOs, ETs, Angels, and God. Now,
Yep.
that is the most in-depth book that I've done. And I relay in that I have been taken to Mars. I'm not part of any space program. I'm not part of super soldiers. I've had super soldiers come to me that are really well known. I mean, going back when the super soldier stuff first came out, that have seen me on missions. I don't have recall of that. But what I'll say is those things are real. In my case, I was taken to multiple bases. I know a few of them were here in Australia, to where they were using trans-dimensional technologies on me to get information. The purpose why I was taken was not probably what your normal stories are with this. It was basically what I perceived as torture, but what they were really trying to do was use trans-dimensional technologies to derive information from me, to the point that I was taken to what looked like a superdome inside the planet Mars, which I didn't know till Elohim told me afterwards. I didn't know where it was until later. And it was like an artificial light or a real light coming in through the top of this thing. It looked like you're looking up at a shopping center or a football stadium, but it was all sort of what I thought was glass panels. There was hexagon shapes on the ground. I don't know if it was metal or whatnot. I was basically out of it getting dragged by people that looked like they were in black military suits, like, you know, ready to go. Like, I couldn't tell. So they took me to a room that was like I was in a toroidal field, with a band around it, with people in white lab coats in it, that later it was revealed that this was like the last time this happened, meaning being taken. This only happened once at this facility. That it was some type of technology that they had psychics in there, that through the technology and me in it, they were trying to derive information from, we could say, not the brain, but the non-physical aspect. And it did none of it worked from what I was told, because the Elohim, and I've had some well-known secret space or whatever programs they're part of come to me, and what I find commonly, which is what happened with me, which is going on with them, is it's almost like they're double-edged or double spies or triple spies. Meaning, my question one time to the Elohim and the Bangs was, why can't you just go into these bases and find, stop it, see what's going on? And they said that there's transdimensional technologies, almost like a crystal grid of the facilities, that stops remote viewing them, bilocating into them, teleportation into them, even access to the stargates within them if you haven't got certain ways of getting, working with certain devices. So what's happening is some people go into these projects, and unbeknownst to them even, everything they're experiencing and doing, when they get out of those facilities, they could be taken by their team, and that information and experiences is downloaded to, it could be extraterrestrials, it could even be angelics, and they retrieve that information like intel for what's actually going on with projects, because there is universal law and guardians, which are those, the white greys I talked about, that apparently their job is to overlook synthetic and real stargates and transdimensional technologies to like monitor what's going on. So I've had those experiences. I've also been taken to the Pleiades, Orion, and Sirius, as well as others. I talk in the book about the Elohim teleporting me in a blue orb form. That was early 2014, or a quarter of the way into 2014. This stuff I haven't spoken about for 10 years, ever, publicly.
Yeah.
I did recently in one or two interviews, but my point is that it's not something I go out and blab. There's stuff still happening now that I may never release. But there's reasons for that, because I don't think you just need to go and blurt everything out, but it also gives me an idea of who's who.
Yeah.
And because last thing I want to do sometimes when I have an experience is go and talk about it. I don't know how people can do that. That's not judgment, but this is also where the community, through some people, I believe entities are working through them unbeknownst to them, bringing a lot of muddy in the waters of what's going on. And I think we need to be in truth. You can't, with your question you had, you can't dwell on the negative. Like my experience, I can't put a percentage, but I wouldn't even say 5% of all intelligences are negative. But the negativity pushes on the positivity to where as a civilization look at the world half empty than half full in situations like the cup is half empty or it's half full. It really screws with our perception.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to ask you the question, because it just felt like, you know what, it's getting a little dark now. I think I've learned what I needed to surrounding, the secret space program and the darker side of the ET agenda. So yeah, I just thought it was important to ask that. So thank you for shedding some light on that.
Don't focus on it, be aware of it. But what happens is, and this is where entities kick in, all of a sudden you realize it's been 2 months and all you've done is watch space program videos and super soldier videos and the Illuminati and the Cabal and the reptilians. And for me, it's different because I've experienced it. I really haven't had to research it. So I can understand people interested in it, but that is a form of mind manipulation. Now your frequency is going, whoa. Like what eventually happens, there's a breaking free that happens, and if that's where they come from, they eventually get to consciousness as well, because there's non-corporeal, highly advanced intelligences even in those programs they may even momentarily experience, to where it's like, whoa, there's not just ETs, there's beings from totally different frequencies, and it's like, whoa, this is where it goes to a new level, and you see them break out of that. But their come from might have been a space program or a super soldier program or what have you. So you've got to be aware, don't get obsessed, but it's like, let your soul pull you, your heart pull you to what you should be maybe going into, which you can't explain it. It's a feeling. Source speaks to you through feeling and pulls you in directions. And as long as it's not hurting anyone, but it's fruitful, there's nothing wrong with that. So it's going to be uncomfortable because you're going into the unknown.
One thing I want to really talk about. Sorry, did you want to go first, Jimmy? Did you?
No, go ahead. I do have a question for you in a second, though, but go ahead.
Yeah, okay, I'll quickly ask you because it kind of piggybacks within the SSP while we're on the topic. We were talking to Daryl James, and he was king of the Taigetans during one of his secret space program missions, journeys off-world, and he was describing what it's like as a Pleiadian, what they do, how they eat, how they live, and I was like, Dude, you were in heaven. It feels like heaven. And then I was watching a video with you in it, and then you were talking about the Pleiadians being the future us. And I was like, nah. You mean we're going to be coming into a place of heaven, living in just pure bliss. The way they eat their food is so healthy. The way they have these bugs that decompose bodies, and I know I'm getting into like some weird shit right now, but just all of it, the way, the nature in which they live, even to how they, connect sexually is also on a whole nother
The
level.
stars, like when we're talking about the Pleiades, there's a lot of stars that we can't see at this time in our frequency, the way we're perceiving it. It's not even old enough to harbor life, right? Now, when I've been on ships in certain locations, if you change frequency, other stars can even come online and other planets that weren't existing when you were in the frequency before it, and then those ones can start phasing out. So when we're talking about the Pleiadians, it's a very broad brush. It's like talking about an earthling. Well, where are you from? Indonesia, America, Australia, Canada? It's very layered, but it's something where, again, just being aware of these things. We're here to be human right now. This is the thing. We're here to be human. We've done all this, and it's not a talk down or anything like this, but it is very interesting because there's a remembrance for some that it tickles their soul. There's a yearning for that because an aspect of them has not been them, is them right now. Reincarnation doesn't exist. Reincarnation is a linear concept to understand. What do we hear as well? All your lives are happening at the same time. You can't have it both ways. So the way I explain this is that from the cell of source that you are, it's going fractal out, experiencing multiple experiences simultaneously that, yes, those can bring out other pinpoints of awareness to go more and more fractal, right? But from that Godhead, you can connect into all those past, present, future lives, which are really all present anyway, from that part that you can draw on it, which is about learning from those experiences and not repeating those experiences or having another chance at an experience and making it a better experience than what you're having, another pinpoint of your awareness. In my experience, very rarely have I worked with people that have come directly from source. And what you'll realize is that they've been downloaded other people's experiences in other worlds and on Earth as, we could say, a boot camp form level of knowledge to handle the Earth human experience. Besides that, everyone I've interfaced with, if I look into them on a soul level, they've experienced not just the Pleiades and Orion and Sirius and Arcturus and the Andromeda galaxy going out to the other galaxies, but they've gone to, like, extraterrestrials are the bottom 5% of what's out there, including us. Even if you're going up the densities of consciousness. Once you get to a certain level, and I can't prove any of this, I've been taken through this, so I can only share it. And I don't want anyone to believe me. I want you to do your own research, but there's another 90% of realms that are either thought form realms or just realms. There's no planets, there's no stars. And then you hit what I call the geometric light realms, which is fractal living geometry light, where the beings and also the angelics are coming through from that, and then you break through into darkness, and then you hit source. So when I experienced that, it makes all this look like child's play, but I can understand for a lot waking up, it's like, whoa, but it's like, remember, so many people go, I'm a ninth dimensional Pleiadian. I use this analogy all the time. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but 3 months, 3 years later, they'll come back and they'll start having experiences with other beings. And what they realize is it's their old, like their soul family, their crew, starting to interface with them as they start to reach certain levels. And when they start to go to another level and they're recalling and they're doing the inner work, now the higher beings come in, and then other higher beings come in, and they're always a thought away. But, it's intriguing with the technologies that they've got and how they can live in orbs, these balls, metallic balls, and there's everything in them. There's no roads or anything. They can pick them up, move them down anywhere they want in certain sectors, not just in the Pleiades, but other cultures. There's certain ways that they can live, their life cycles, their height, their teeth, their ears, their telepathic abilities, their level of consciousness that they're at depends on the level of consciousness of things that they're creating. Meaning it depends on the level of technology. But see, the thing is, right, all this led, and I didn't understand till recently, and I'll shut up in a minute, but to the rainbow body of Merkaba.
No, don't shut up.
this is where it really goes into, because all that's child's play. All of it's child's play, and it doesn't belittle it, but you can't get to these higher things unless you go through them. And this is why, even with the rainbow body, which was new to me in some concepts, because I've had experiences with rainbow beings going back years. But until I understood that even the rainbow body is being taught in 13 star systems, not just Tibet, and then you go into the Merkaba, these beings predominantly at the highest states of consciousness that are masters, saints and sages on other worlds or the equivalent, they could be meditating and project a physical form in front of you. They don't need a craft. Most of the time, they don't even need crafts, these beings, because there's Stargate technologies all around the universe. So sometimes they'll use crafts, but they can just get in an elevator or walk through a device in an underground base and they're popping out in another world. It's very convoluted. It's very convoluted.
Are mirrors used like that, like portals and stuff like that? I'm trying to understand.
Well, even there was a case recently, I can't go too much into it, but I had to put certain type of water on mirrors to stop dark entities coming through it.
How do you mean?
Well, people can use mirrors to send dark entities or even normal, like spirits or whatever they want, through mirrors. So what it come down to through a process of elimination, it was the mirrors these things were coming through. As soon as I did that, everything stopped.
Why are you telling me this now? Do you know what I'm about to start doing? I'm about to start looking in the mirror, looking at myself, talking to myself, learning to love myself, and you're telling me it's a fucking portal? Come on.
Well, we were talking about this yesterday. There is something about speaking to your higher self. I know when I look in the mirror, it is some powerful energy. If I'm speaking from my heart or speaking like I go somewhere. I don't know.
Because it's a portal.
Right. We have portals ourselves, but the thing is, have you ever heard the terminology used as egregore?
It's kind of.
So, as an example, it's something that everyone thinking is real now creates it is real. As an example, let's say you're going to a haunted location and all of a sudden there's bad activity and everyone's going in there saying, well, the story goes that a person called Fred died nearby. He was an angry dude and now he's an angry spirit running around. Then you find out he never existed, and everyone going in there ghost hunting, saying Fred's here, he's an angry spirit. They've created it over time. And what I've said in some cases, and I've seen other investigations handle it the same way, is you tell them to start talking to the spirit as if it's a positive being. And the activity quite quickly starts to change. It was a group collective consciousness creating that, just like Tulpas in Tibet, where through their own consciousness, they can actually manifest entities.
God,
that
we
can
are
be
powerful.
bands, things like that. Well, that's the thing. This is what intrigues me, even with my own telekinesis and levitation experiences.
Oh, you too?
Yeah, so I've had those things, and this is why I've dedicated my whole life to the sanctuary and to human mechanics, multidimensional mechanics, because the way it's been explained is that we are able to do things transdimensionally that not quite all the other beings can do, but we don't understand it ourselves. They didn't even understand, those that have assisted in this process, the ramifications of doing so, meaning heightened emotion. So when we're dark, we can be very dark. When we're loving, we can be extremely loving. But we have got quite amazing capabilities. And that's why I say don't look to the stars, look to the heart, because the heart's going to give you access not just to the stars, but to source and everything in between.
Yeah, it is your imagination. And can I ask you a question? I wanted to I haven't really met anybody that could tell me what exactly this is called, so I can research this more. But when contacting, I get into like something like a trance where I've spoke to Jesus and then an alien, like a gray alien and all, but you get into like a zone. You get like this high type feeling for a second, and then everything is magnified. And like if I'm watching something, I can make faces morph into different things. Like I don't know what is that called. Like you were describing something similar to it in another video.
Mary Rodwell, who's, I call her like Mama Starseed. She's known in Australia but around the world. there was a regression. I've only done, I think it was 3 or 4 regressions. Didn't need to do them again. It was more of show for other people, I guess, because the beings were actually overshadowing me and speaking through me and turning on and off devices and what have you. The first time it happened, I was convulsing, and what was happening is, I think Mary calls it the champagne effect, but basically it's like you're being, like, remember how I said before that their light body overlaps our light body, or the craft can overlap us? So what's happening is, if you're communing with a certain type of entity, they're in effect, they're coming into your energetic field, and what's happening is you're feeling that byproduct. I'm theorizing here, but this is what I believe is going on. And their light
Yeah.
body is now overlapping your light body. And what's happening is there's a merging in consciousness and interfacing that goes on. That one thing that I say to a lot of people is, if you can practice getting in the zone, that's where, if you can perceive that you're perceiving this reality and observe that you're perceiving this reality, now you're on the same wavelength of a lot of other beings, higher selves or high density beings, to where you can interface to the point that the body won't understand it, but you might get words, concepts, and ideas that I explain are chapter headings. The paragraphs can integrate straight away,
Yeah.
or you might get an understanding a day later or what have you. So what's happening is, you're trying to go from multidimensional mind, me, everyone else included, you're going from multidimensional mind, and then you might be channeling or saying certain things. You're pulling it from a communion state of you and the entity, and it's really going down the crown chakra through the right side of the brain to the left, being decoded and delineated and dulled down so it can be verbalized in a way that we can express in human language. But if you're just sitting there in the presence, transdimensional information, like a 45-minute conversation, can go in a second like that. You know it, you don't know how you know it, you feel it, that's multidimensional communication. But it's because our brains are only operating between 5 and 10%, I believe, at the moment, that we can't understand the full information. But when we're operating at 100%, I think we could get it. I think we could get it full.
Yeah, it was mainly telepathic. After the first time, it was all telepathic with them, but I was seeing another object, but talking to them. Like I was getting instant, like you said, instantly I knew the answer. Like where I didn't a second ago, and then it was there.
Well,
They even
it's the same
took
with
over
remote
my
viewing.
body. Huh?
It's the same
I'm
with
sorry.
remote viewing. As an example, sorry to cut you off, I'm just going to say this while I remember.
No, go ahead.
Go for it.
But with remote viewing, and I've trained a remote viewing for years, and I've got to the point that every now and then I'll do it we could say the old school way, which I think you need to learn that before doing it any other way. But remote viewing, that was a government project in the US, as many listeners might know, that they spent over 20 million on it, and I think it went for 20 years.
The Gateway
eventually went into
Project.
Project Stargate, Ingo Swann, and all these amazing remote viewers were part of it. But what I can tell you with remote viewing, it's the same thing, even though you might be doing it through perception and when things that you perceive through the senses, whether it's colors, taste, dimensions, what have you. When you're doing it, it's the first thing that comes to mind. So what I say to people is, like with women's intuition, right? It comes straight through. The chick doesn't know what's going on. She just knows this person's done that or this is going on. They don't second guess, right? So it's retraining us, whether we're males or female, when you're now initiating it, when the information comes through, like even the recent earthquake in Australia and some other events, even terrorist events, I was saying when they were going to happen. And it's, I don't even, like, there's documented proof of this. So if it's not to brag, but what I'm saying is, when those things happen to me, I don't know what's going on. I just know. And it defies my mind. We're on one tectonic plate. How the hell are we going to have an earthquake? And where I was sitting, I was actually doing an appointment at the time, and it was 5.6 in the area I was. My point with this is, when it's multidimensional mind and it's truth, you know it, but it just comes through. You can't explain it. As soon as you start second guessing, you're either the information is off the mark, or the longer it keeps going, you're filtering the information, manipulating the information to make it make sense, which means you're totally off the mark.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, that's okay. But the more that you practice working with that intuition that's direct, that's where, yes, spirit guides and team can be. That's where the higher self can be, but that's also where source can be, all through that one channel.
I like that. I feel like you're speaking to my soul right now, because one of the main focuses in my reality right now is practicing psychic ability, mediumship, exploring the senses. I opened up through my podcast, right? We both did. I went and saw a psychic. I was like, I need help. My life is just chaos. And she's like, you have 5 or 6 psychic senses. And I'm like, who, me? Like, no. And so
Everyone.
yeah, everyone. But I was
Well,
like, if she hadn't have said that, would I be doing this right now? Do you know what I mean? Because everybody has this gift, everyone has this ability. And it takes one person to say, oh, you can do this, to then unlock and unpack all of the other senses of things that we never really paid attention to. And it's life changing.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like,
My
you,
advice, but is there's a lot of crap out there. I've experienced it, unfortunately, and I prefer not to be part of any community, though I work with a lot of people in all
yeah.
communities. But what I'll say is don't look up to anyone, even the beings. My life, through my experiences, hardcore change came about every day and every night and during the day. I say, and this is where it all started, was saying to God, source creator, how can I be a vehicle for you to work through and assist
Yeah.
others? And I accept the blessings and abundance that comes with it, because it helps me just keep doing what I'm doing. If that's taken care of, give it to me. And what happens is you got to get out of your own way in that, because you're going to pull stuff out of the ethers and directions and events that you cannot possibly perceive until you fully get out of the way. And it's scary because you're doing this. I want to do it, but hey, I want to do it in a way that's possible. You've got to
Yeah.
completely surrender and let go. But if you do that and you allow that, what's waiting on the other side of where you previously are, you can't compare the two. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of soul evolution that occurs in that state.
I love that. It's so real. So true. Because it's terrifying, but very exciting at the same
Yeah,
time.
hugely.
I wanted to know if you knew much about the dormant DNA within our body, and have any of your guides or extraterrestrial beings discussed with you or let you understand a little bit about how to unlock that dormant DNA, and what is it all about? Why are we only operating on such a minor amount of that DNA? Who are we? What are we capable of?
How do we upgrade ourselves?
I wouldn't worry about it. And why I
Mm.
wouldn't
Yeah.
worry about it is if you're being the best version of yourself, those things will come with what needs. See, we go into all this stuff, and of course it's very intriguing, and there's a lot of material in the books about it. Like a lot of my books go into different layers, because
I am buying all of the books.
it goes to another level. And it's not to sell my books, but this is the thing, is that the levels that I've been given the information, it blows my mind, because like every day the experiences and things are just taking different concepts or subject matters to different heights. Now, of course, with the DNA, it cannot be changed scientifically. People don't understand this in the spiritual community. What it is, it's that it was explained to me by a geneticist. There's like cogs in a wheel within it. And when you turn that, we could say that the dormant DNA can turn on, right? Now, from my information, that through manipulation, through certain entities and social engineering, it's what's slowed down, and then we could say turn that wheel and started turning stuff off. Now, what I'll tell you now is I can't prove it. Talking to scientists and doctors, they all agree that the R part of the brain, the reptilian brain, which is near the pineal gland, wasn't originally part of the earth human. Now, what I will say is that when you're triggered, that's the part of you that lights up. Now, they also say it's fight or flight, but hey, we've been around for billions of years. We're still here. We've got to have some fight or flight without that, right?
Mm.
Now, from what I know, that was introduced by the reptilians as a biological implant into us, that when we get triggered, it feeds not just, we could say, lower astral entities, but the AI that was created to hold a frequency so the fallen Elohim can stay in existence. And it's through us powering that. But here's the thing with self-mastery. as I say, there's blessings and burdens. If you can overcome that and observe, hey, I'm being triggered, and shift to a positive action, doing something positive, what you start to create is new neuron networking. That if you do those things each time, what's happening is now instead of the cup half empty all the time, the cup's half full. You're changing the direction. So
Right
within
on.
the DNA, we are made, like I believe when we hear we're made in the Creator's image, that's the Merkaba, right? So it's a light body template. Within the spirit holds all the geometric templates. But then, yes, you've got the non-physical aspect, the light print of the DNA, and then you've got the physical aspect of the DNA. My thing with all this is if you're just the best version of you, and I say this to so many people when they're worried about their partner, their family, this, that, and the other, you know, they're not into this, they're not aware. And I say, well, would they give their shirt off their back to another human if they were in trouble? Yeah, they don't need to know any of this. The simplistics of ascension is being the best you. Doesn't mean you got to go and hike up the Himalayas and sit on a peak and be like, oh, you know what I mean? It doesn't work like that.
I sure hope not, because I ain't getting up there.
No, it's just being the best you, but you being the best you as well, and laughing and joking, carrying on, have a good time, like with Skywatchers. That's where people like James Gillian and I, like, people can go to he said he's so serious when I'm there, and even when just James is there, and we just walk out and we just start joking. And as soon as everyone's focused on that, and they've set the intention, but remember this?
Yeah.
They let go. That's when the activity starts.
Right.
And it's like in life when you're trying to manifest, you focus too much, it's not going to come into bang. You know that it has, so it is, just let it go. Sorry, Jimmy.
No, I was agreeing with you. I was just saying you get in the flow state and things just come to you like that.
Well, that zone you're talking about before, I talk about that in the books because the zone to me is one of the most important practices. Now, this can be doing through things that are pleasurable, hobbies, driving a car, not that I, say, I want you to fall asleep, but things that get you in the zone, like daydreaming, right?
Yeah.
You hit no mind. And when you're in no mind, you're in God's mind. And as an example with a lot of people I use, let's say you've got a problem, you wake up, for 3 hours, you've been working on it all day and you get nowhere. And you go, stuff this, I'm just going to go for a walk. So you go for a walk, 15 minutes into the walk, the idea to fix that problem comes in, you rush home, you fix it in 1 second. How'd you get in the zone? You let go, you just hit that zone through no mind, you're 15 minutes into the walk, you're not even thinking, you're not even here, and it drops in. That zone, for some people, I say, if you swimming laps gets you in the zone, swim laps. If it's fishing, if it's this, if it's that, whatever it is, but make sure it's a regular habit and you have different ways to get you in the zone. You don't want like the spiritual practices as much as I do. I mix it up and have a set regime, but it's different every day, so I don't get bored with it.
Oh, I just had an aha moment. Just hit me in the face real quick. I love it. It was like, oh, fuck, I just forgot it. Get lost. I hate when that happens. You know, when you get a download and you're like, oh, I gotta be quick. Damn it.
I say you keep it infinite though, and your approach to things. Like people get regimented in what they have to do. They have to meditate for a certain number of hours, or they do this when you should really flow with it, right?
Oh, I just remembered. That's it. Yeah.
No, say it before you lose it, because I got something, but say that you don't want to lose it. Yeah,
it's like, when you're always analytically thinking, you're thinking, it's like you're steering away from the message that's just sitting there waiting for you, but you're heading over to the right or the left. It's like if you just get back in the center, it's like bing, there it is, that's your message.
That's why eating, exercise, all these components of your practices are important. But one thing that Jimmy triggered in me then, which is, I think, important, see, even with meditation or any of these practices, what happens is so many people come to me going, I had this amazing experience and I want it to happen again. Them wanting the same experience to happen again and again. I want the experience, but I want it this way, where if they, like, how would I put this? The best way to get the best results, even with sky watching, when I do any practices, I always set the intention that whatever I need to experience today to be a better person, to be of service and bring love and joy into my life, hit me with it. When I do that, it's game on, but it can be things that are so far left of field that you need. that because you're not doing this now, you're like this.
Yeah.
You know, amazing things can happen. And I think, you know, whether it's doing meditation or other forms of consciousness expanding exercises or yoga or qigong or yigong or, you know, whatever it is, when you set the intention with each practice like that, the benefits are not only amplified, but they're exactly what you need. Because sometimes what we think we need, just like with healing in that, the analogy I use is somebody's got a back problem. Well, the back problem might be caused by something in the upper back with the shoulders. It could be from the legs, it's pulling muscles down and creating pain in the back. It could be emotionally that you feel like you're not supported, and it's not even a physical thing, but it's a manifestation now in the back. So this is where getting out of the way, even as I say with healers, like we don't heal anyone or anything. We're a vehicle for source to go through and assist amplifying and helping people to help empower themselves with the healing. But that's what I personally believe to get the best results. But it's letting go with whatever it is.
I love that. So powerful.
That's really your main message, and a lot of what you're saying is to remain infinite, right? Open-minded and infinite in your thinking.
Yeah, taking the data points. Let your heart pull you, whether it's a different subject matter and what have you. It's just you don't want to get yourself in the box. Because as soon as you go, I'm a ninth dimensional Pleiadian, as soon as you go, I'm a healer, as soon as you go, I'm a teacher of this, as soon as you do any of that, you put yourself in the box.
Yeah.
Those are stepping stones to getting back to what you're actually meant to be doing, because your purpose is your passion. But like I say to people, it doesn't mean you're here just for one thing. It adapts, it changes, and that each passion is the boot camp for the next thing that ends up being boot camp for the next thing after that. And before you know it, like even with myself, I'm trained in different disciplines of yoga, different not just remote viewing, but meditation.
That's the word that spirit just
gave
word to me. Yeah, the D.
In the book,
D's coming up again.
Words. Yeah. And it is important because for me, going to learn NLP, hypnotherapy, remote viewing, yoga, meditation, like the list goes on and on. Literally, it's not look at me. It was I want to learn as much of the mechanics as I can because I knew what my role was. Because when I individually helping people or doing group things, through the training and intuition, I can see that how you two are operating is different. But if you know the tools or the variety of tools going, hey, here's the toolbox. Have you tried this? That's what gets each person to their full potential if they feel this is their path. Doesn't mean it's everyone's path. Like ascension is for everyone, but there's different layers and levels to ascension, and we all go through it. But like I say, you just can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but it doesn't mean we're all going into 5D overnight and we're going to be, you know, levitating on our Persian rugs and singing Kumbaya.
Oh, I love that.
I don't know if everybody is they're ready for that kind of responsibility in their life. You know what I mean? Imagine.
Well, I'll tell you now, like I can't go into the details, and it wasn't me, but I know somebody that in recent times, there's been a few people have UFO sightings with them on different times. These people ended up in mental wards.
Yeah.
Like I say, I think we're ready for ETs are real. I've spoken to people in the different air forces and government around the world. It's like, hey, give them that. Maybe just wean in the multidimensional thing down the track. Yeah. You can't go from A to Z, especially in a way like this. But, you know, it is one of those things that it's going to change people. But like with the shift in consciousness, there's going to be a light switch that turns on overnight, as Dolores Cannon, and I've had it explained to me in a very similar way to where it's just going to be known that all these conversations we're going to look back and absolutely laugh about.
Yeah.
Really?
It's the illusion of separation and not knowing. Yeah. And that's, you know, this is where I believe at a point in time it will get. It'll be like you've had a bad trip and you've been in it your entire life and you're like, whoa, that was weird. I'm not sure if I want to do that again. And they're like,
you are far from not the first person tell us this. Like a lot of people are saying this, and I'm like, let's get it on and flip that switch.
Let's do it. But you got to be ready for it, right? Because you'll see some things, you'll know some things, you're like, fuck, my reality is not what I thought it was. Bam, you realize, oh, I wasn't ready for this. So maybe that is why the government isn't giving us disclosure. Maybe that's why they're not telling us, because a big portion of the collective might go a little bit crazy. Like, who knows? But
Oh, it's laid. That is a bit like I can't go into much, but I've got a lot of people coming to me like in recent times that I've declined. And the thing is that a
damn.
lot in governments think they know what's going on, yet do they know there's other groups darker than them, meaning
Mhm.
they're blacker or not even black. They're beyond, eternally silent. And these are some high profile people, and they even think they got the picture and there's other groups beyond them. And I'm sure there's other groups again.
You just made me
So,
think of Lady Gaga. There's this one video of her just walking down these stairs, petrified. Like, I don't know if you've seen it or not. And I'm just like, the thing going on in my mind is whatever's going on in Hollywood is part of what you're discussing right now. And there's some pretty dark, evil, nasty things going on. But I don't know if she was, terrified out of her brain. Maybe they said, don't speak up about this or this will happen, blah, blah, blah. But it gets dark.
let's start. I was
She
recently in
admits it,
Hollywood
man.
in October in Malibu. Actually, I had to go through Hollywood, which I'm not a big fan of LAX or Hollywood itself.
Mm.
And let's say there's some influential people that in Malibu I was doing a talk on Ascension for an hour and a half to, just trying to
Oof.
share some light and influence that I know that was received well. But I don't think, maybe Hollywood's probably not going to be around much longer in the way that people have been seeing it for years. There's a lot of people waking up. There's a lot of people there moving out. And there's more and more people in those circles that haven't been aware of what they've been a part of, that I've spoken to, that are very concerned about what they've been around. And they're the cabal and the we could say reptilian, archonic, demonic forces are very specific about who they use as vehicles.
Mm.
And then they'll have other vehicles that are like pawns that are contributing to certain things, which we can say most of humanity is doing that in certain ways by watching the mainstream news and acting this way and seeing these celebrities as gods.
Stop watching the TV, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Read
15
Peter's
years
books.
for me, nearly 15 years for me watching telly. I've got one out there just for presentations, but pick up the laptop and I watch, maybe a YouTube thing or something here and there. But it's a hypnotizing machine.
The thing about those people in Hollywood is that whether they knew about it and kept quiet or couldn't say nothing or whatever, they were complicit in it, and not very many of them are actually repentant about what they've done or what they saw.
And whether it's too much shell
they
shock,
should be out there throwing 100% of what they know out there, and just throw yourself to the mercy of the people, and just because otherwise you are an enemy of the people. If you have,
what's happening is there is a thing where what I've heard in circles of, I forget the terminology. It's like they get off free if they get like they feel bad, but they release the information. I know there's like a certain clause, it's like the whistleblower thing. They can go against the government and say this, and they're not going to have ramifications. I think that this is something that's very individual for each person. But what I say is that the soul is what pays for this, and the soul is what creates its own hell, and that's something that they'll have to experience, whether taking the task or not. And I'm not up for violence or hurting people. I know that we do need defenses, we need protection mechanisms in place, we do need national and earth security. Not everything's like hunky-dory and all that. So it is a tricky situation, and some people are completely innocent, but if aware, it's like you can make a change. You can whether bring light onto it or try and affect it, change the circumstances and do what you can. People say, what can I do? Well, you can be the best you and do something, and that's you playing your part in the collective. So you can always do something, even if you think you can't, but you've got to see that light at the end of the tunnel, even if it is screwed up.
That's it.
Hey, can I ask you, in your opinion, like we were just talking about these Hollywood people, so some of these famous people are being accused of selling their soul for fame. And I'm wondering if you think once that soul is sold, can you get that back? Is there a way?
Yeah,
certainly.
it is. I
That's
think
not
it
an
is.
eternal contract.
No. See, you got to realize as well, the dark masters are also an aspect of source. And this is why
Yeah.
now it doesn't mean like I endorse child trafficking, all this stuff going on. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is I'm at a point now, like I was saying earlier, that I will use the terminology good and bad. That once you understand from experience that I cannot put it any other way, and it's not to be derogatory to people who put anyone down, but from my experience now, that everything is one consciousness interfacing with itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like the hell that I've gone through in the last 15 years, but recent times it's been extreme. But the evolution, the compassion, the forgiveness, the strength, and also directions and opportunities that have presented themselves with how I've handled that has brought me to a place that if I didn't go through that, I would not be able to be how effective I am now in doing what I'm doing and achieve what I've achieved without that. So it's almost like we hear the old saying of, you get given lemons, let's make some lemonade from it.
Right, right.
So there is a place within this, because it's like, how can God allow this to happen? And I've spoken about this recently. There is a cop-out in this community. Is part of your soul contract? No.
Yeah.
You can change it, but also on top of that is there's people's free will. And somebody's free will impeding on yours can be a burden, but it can also be a blessing from how you handle that situation. Again, not making that okay. And I use sexual abuse, especially for women, on this because I'm sure they didn't agree to this in most cases.
Yeah.
Some soul contracts could have it, thrown in there that you're going to do this and that. I'm not saying that's okay, but what I'm saying is I'm sure in a lot of cases, no, it wasn't in your contract. So come on, give me it's in your soul contract. So no, somebody's free will crossed your free will on your contract here, and it's up to you what you're going to do about it. And the way we have to suck it up. Doesn't mean it's okay, but it's like, you're going to let it destroy you and be a victim, or are you going to be victorious? Which is why I've called the sanctuary here Jaya Sanctuary, which means victory, self-mastery, and a balance of feminine and masculine in Sanskrit. Because I want everyone that comes here to be victorious in whatever it is that they want to do with their life. And that's the message with this, is that, we can't be victims. We've got to be victorious in what we can do. And, it's hard. But that's the self-mastery. And it's only as hard as you make it. The start of it is really hard. But until you start to see the matrix and the way that source is positive and negative, dark and lightness, and that there's even things that we're not able to perceive within it through communing with source, through the heart space, it's really a open map that if you want to get to the mountain peak, there's so many ways you can get to that mountain peak, and everyone's track up there is slightly different, and everyone's chopping through the bushes, or they're hiking up the rocks a different way, or, there's a different way for all of us. So it's, it's freaking crazy.
It is freaking crazy.
Makes a good case for learning unconditional love. If you've known you've been
Peter self-mastery. James Gillian said that to me years ago. He goes, it's unconditional love. And I think, Jimmy, that's a perfect way to put it, because self-mastery is one thing, but now try and do self-mastery in a relationship or in a family. That's some self-mastery right there, next level stuff, because this is where, that's a big topic. That's another video.
That is another video. So look, let's bring this podcast to an end. Look, it was an absolute fucking pleasure to have you on the show today. You are incredible. To all the viewers out there watching, if you have not dived deep into your own consciousness, awareness, mastery of self, this is your man right here, Peter Slattery, from Australia. Check him out. Where can they find you, Pete? Let them know.
There's petermaxwellslattery.com, or under that name in social media. Also Jaya Sanctuary, which is Jaya Sanctuary, and also ESETI Australia, which is the affiliate of James Gillian's ESETI. So any of those avenues will take you to me. And all the websites have got the links to the books and the movies, and some stuff is free, some isn't. There's a lot of meditations, a lot of resources that I've put up that are like hours and hours of material that is free, because of course, not everyone can pay for stuff, but also everything that I'm doing is going back into this. And eventually, if I transition, this is hopefully the way I'm trying to set this up. It can go on for the people. So,
Love it. And also you do readings as well. So for those watching who may want to do a reading with you, how do they find you there?
Yeah, just the same websites. I call it more intuitive spiritual insight, because I operate differently from most readers, because when you're coming into my presence, it's all about what's going to get you from where you are to be the best version of yourself. And that's the way that I operate. Sometimes it might be healing or other things, or things need to be brought to light and future things, but I don't see it like a crystal ball lady at the fair. It's going in levels that it's like, let's get you to where you need to go. So there's that. And also events at Jaya Sanctuary. I'm closing for the winter now and opening in spring. So there's 2-day workshops, self-mastery and CE5 workshops and all that. Next year, I'll have a lot of different workshops from remote viewing and ascension and light worker workshops and other things as well.
Awesome, guys. Check it out in the link below. I would love to check out your remote viewing class. That's what I'm about right now.
I think Natalie's going to be sending you an email pretty soon.
Yeah, people just check out the websites and hit us up, and you're more than welcome here. And Jimmy, if you ever get the fly over, if not, go to ESP.
Yeah, there's one in America.
I wanted I was telling Natalie about that when I heard you mention his name. I've seen a bunch of interviews that James Gilliam was in, and all the UFO footage and stuff like that he has. And
you should get him on the show. He's an amazing man.
Very interesting.
I'm gonna get over there because I'm usually.
I would love to have him on the show. Jeez.
Yeah. No, go and
talk
get
to
him. I'm hoping to get there in the next couple of months. So it's a beautiful place at ESP. Beautiful.
Maybe you can make that happen, Pete. Talk to your buddy and get him on the show for us.
I love it.
See what I can do.
Awesome.
Right,
well, look, it's been
it's a pleasure meeting you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.